So today we're going to continue our series on faith. We're going to be looking at Fireproof Faith. Sometimes God will deliver you from the fire. And sometimes He'll make you fireproof. So Fireproof Faith. So today I'm going to reveal to you guys that Santa Claus is not real.
You know.
So it might be hard for some of you to accept. But
he's not real.
Yeah, Santa Claus.
Yeah, that will be a good lesson so I can tell my nieces and nephews.
Okay. Alright, so I'll start. So last week we did wet feet faith. I won't do the review for it for the sake of time, but we ended with the verse Isaiah 43:2.
No.
And that's going to be how we start this week. It says, when you pass through the waters, I will be with you. When you pass through the rivers, they will not sweep over you. When you walk through the fire, you will not be burned. The flames will not set you ablaze. So fireproof faith. Sometimes God will rescue you from the fire, and other times He'll make you fireproof. So I talked about last week and maybe the week before a period of time when I had got laid off. And during that time, I was stressing. I was looking for a job, looking for work. And I don't know if I mentioned it, that God told me, He said, you've been complaining about, I wish, I had some time, because of all the work I was doing. He said, well, this is your time. He said, stop looking for work. So He told me to stop looking. So I stopped looking, and I was scared to spend money. So I went and looking. This was maybe 6 years ago, before the Warriors were good. So you can get the Warriors tickets really cheap. So I was on sites looking for discount comedy. So anything with discount tickets, I was just buying them out in advance and just enjoying myself. I said, okay, I'm not going to worry anymore. I'm not going to stress. So I just, enjoyed myself. And then eventually I got a call from somebody I used to work with that said, hey, we got a job for you. So during that period, I knew God was going to take care of me, so I stopped worrying. And I wasn't not worrying because I knew God was going to give me a job. It was because I knew God was going to provide for me. So I knew I was going to be okay. Yeah. So that's what fireproof faith is.
That's fireproof faith.
So there's delivering faith and there's sustaining faith. So sometimes God will deliver you from the fire. So sometimes God will resolve your issue. God will put it into your trial. God will rescue you. God will heal you from your sickness. God will give you delivering faith. But then other times, God will make you fireproof. So He doesn't remove the problem you're in, but He gives you the strength, the faith, and motivation that you need to keep you going while you have the problem. God will give you the ability to endure the suffering, and He gives you sustaining faith.
And that's making you fireproof, giving you the strength to endure, right?
Yes. So delivering faith is when you go through a trial and you pray to God and He delivers you out of that trial. Sustaining faith is when God gives you the strength to make it through the trial. So delivering faith is, by your faith you're healed. It's the blind beggar that Jesus made see. It's the 10 lepers that got cleansed. It's the woman with the issue of blood. It's the man who couldn't walk that Jesus made walk. By your faith you're healed. He delivered them. Sustaining faith is being obedient and keeping God first while you're going through the struggle. So it's the thorn in Peter's side. It's Daniel in the lion's den. It's the 3 Hebrew boys. So let's see. So which of those types of faith would you rather have, and why?
I think I'd rather have, being that I've gone through so many situations in my life. I think I would rather have fireproof faith, because I know that going through the fire strengthens you, and it makes you smarter and stronger, and it gives you something to talk about to your grandchildren. It gives them some ideas, give them some examples and what to do and what not to do in life. So it's a learning lesson, but it's not a lesson that's going to kill you, because you're going to come through it at the end. You're going to make it.
Right.
But it's difficult to go through, and that's difficult to build character.
Yeah. Okay.
I know that now, but before going through my trial, it was very hard. Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else?
Mine be fireproof faith. Going through the fire, going through that God is with you, that you won't be unshakable, and then you can share a testimony to someone else. Maybe the situation they going through is what you went through. You can show them how to do that.
Okay.
Yeah. He says he will not burn, that you will not be burned.
Right.
The flame will not set you ablaze.
Right. Okay.
We gotta trust his word.
Yes.
But one kind of works on the other, right? Having the faith to go through the stuff, and then having the faith that you're going to be okay. Either way, you're going to be okay. Whether it's knowing you're going to be okay, or actually going through it and then becoming okay.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So the faith to know that either way, God is going to take care of you.
Right.
So that's what sustaining faith is, when God doesn't deliver you, but He gives you the strength to make it. And so that's fireproof faith.
And the other one?
The other one is delivering you from the fire.
Oh.
It's delivering you out of the fire.
Once you've already been going through it.
Well, yeah, or once you're in the fire, but he gets you out of the fire.
Okay.
He takes you out of the fire.
But then you don't learn anything.
Or He prevents you from going into the fire.
Okay. But then do you learn anything from the fire?
It builds your faith, but you may not learn.
Right, but you're right. Okay, it does. It strengthens your faith. That's what the lesson is.
Yeah.
Okay.
So now we're going to look at Daniel 3, the story of the 3 Hebrew boys, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. So we're going to start. So Daniel 2, the Jews they're under captivity, under the rule of King Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon. Nebuchadnezzar had a dream about a statue with a head of gold and the feet of clay and bronze. And he asked all the sorcerers and interpreters to tell him what the dream was, and nobody could tell him. So he said he was going to kill all of them. But then Daniel came and interpreted the dream for the king. And so he got a position in the court, in the high court. And he also requested that his friends, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, become administrators. So that's where we pick up the story. So I'll read Daniel 3, 1 through 12. It says, King Nebuchadnezzar made an image of gold, 60 cubits high and 6 cubits wide, and set it up in the plain of Dura, in the province of Babylon. So it was 90 feet high and 9 feet wide.
Right.
He summoned the satraps, prefects, governors, advisors, treasurers, judges, magistrates, and all the other provincial officials to come and dedicate the image God has set up. So the satraps, prefects, governors, advisors, treasurers, judges, magistrates, and all the other provincials assembled in dedication to the image that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up, and they stood before it. Then the herald loudly proclaimed, Nations and people of every language, this is what you are commanded to do. As soon as you hear the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, pipe, and all other kinds of music, you must fall down and worship the image of gold that Nebuchadnezzar set up. Whoever does not fall down and worship him will immediately be thrown into the burning furnace. Therefore, as soon as they heard the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, saxophone, drum, scratching, and all kinds of music, all the nations of people of every language fell down and worshipped the image of gold Nebuchadnezzar had set up. At this time, some astrologers or Chaldeans came forward and denounced the Jews. They said to King Nebuchadnezzar, May the king live forever. So this is how they greeted the king. May the king live forever, to show that the respect to the king. So you hear the sound of the horn. Your Majesty has issued a decree that everyone who hears the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, pipe, and all kinds of music must fall down and worship the image of gold, and that whoever does not fall down and worship will be thrown into the blazing furnace. But there are some Jews whom you have set over the affairs of the province of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who pay no attention to you, your Majesty. They neither serve your God nor worship the image you set up. So Nebuchadnezzar had made this large statue. It was of gold. So it may have been related to his dream, because he was the gold on the statue that he dreamed about. So his kingdom was going to go away. There's going to be another kingdom, and it went away. That was a dream. So he may have been wanting to keep his legacy up. Could have been a statue of him. It doesn't say. But he built a statue. But God tells us about building statues in Exodus. You have Exodus.
You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make for yourself an image in the form of anything in heaven above or on earth beneath or in the waters below.
Yes. Yeah, so don't make an image of anything in the heaven above, on earth, or in the waters below. So he told him not. So not only not to worship him, but he said don't make an image of anything. So do people pray to statues today?
Yes.
They do.
Do Christians pray to statues today?
Yes.
Where?
Catholics.
Statues of Mary. Yeah.
All kinds of saints, angels.
They pray to
and stuff.
saints.
Yeah.
They pray to angels.
Angels.
They worship the Pope. You know, they bow down to
Yeah.
the Pope. And so
They
we're not
confess their
supposed to do
sins
that.
to a man, to
Priest.
men. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So we're worshiping. So we still practice worshiping idols, other gods, and God says we're not supposed to.
Not supposed to do that.
We're not supposed to build any images and worship them. So what about the cross?
Is a cross an idol?
That's just a
It's not
sign, a
statue.
symbol. But we
Yeah.
don't worship there. Well, Catholics do, right? But we don't.
Yeah, we shouldn't. Yeah, so I'm not sure about that. It just came out. But yeah.
But I worship the cross. Always, every Sunday.
Mm.
In fact, every morning, there's a cross next to my bed, and before I leave, I get on my knees and I pray for many things and people. I pray every morning. So that's a form of worshiping the cross.
But you're praying to Jesus?
Yes.
Yeah. So praying to Jesus, yeah.
Right.
So yeah.
But he said, yeah, no other cross, pray no other symbols before him.
Right, right. Yeah.
Not about him. He doesn't include himself.
No, he includes himself.
He does?
Yeah. He says nothing in heaven. Yeah, he says don't make
Nothing in
statues of him.
heaven.
Nothing in heaven, on earth, or below the earth.
Not
yeah,
to make image of him.
yeah, he said definitely don't make any images of him.
Yeah.
That was going to distinguish him from the other gods. Yeah, so I'm not that just came to me about the cross, but I don't have a complete opinion on that. But
Another Bible study.
yeah, it'll be a different Bible study. Okay. Yeah, okay. So all right, so let's continue. We'll see what happens. So the king said, whenever you hear any of those instruments, that you should bow down. And the Chaldeans went and reported, hey, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego haven't bowed down. So now we'll pick it up there.
What are Chaldeans?
Chaldeans were a nationality. So it's a nation that doesn't exist. And so this book is written in the language of Chaldean. So Chaldean was a language they spoke in Babylon, or at least where Nebuchadnezzar was. That's the third. Bible is written in Hebrew, Greek, and Chaldean. So Chaldean is what some of those people, Mesopotamians, were referred to as.
Okay.
Yeah. So let's see, you have Daniel 3:13 through 18.
Yes. Furious with rage, Nebuchadnezzar summoned Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. So these men were brought before the king, and Nebuchadnezzar said to them, Is it true, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you do not serve my gods or worship the image of gold I have set up? Now then, you hear the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, pipes, and all kinds of music. If you are ready to fall down and worship the image I made, very good. But if you do not worship it, you will be thrown immediately into a blazing furnace. Then what God will be able to rescue you from my hand? Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied to the king, O Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you in this manner. If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God we serve is able to save us from it, and he will rescue us from your hand, O king. But even if he does not, we want you to know, O king, that we will not serve your gods or worship the image of gold you have set up.
Okay.
Awesome.
So Nebuchadnezzar, he initially said if whoever didn't bow down when the music played, they would get thrown in the fire immediately.
Right.
But Daniel had favor with him, and so did Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. So he brought them to him and said, didn't you hear my decree? If you don't bow down and worship, then... So he was basically giving them another chance.
Right.
He said, if you bow down and worship, and they said, we don't need to defend ourselves in this matter. They basically said, we don't really need your,
You're right,
to discuss
your
this
approval,
any further. We don't need to discuss this any further because our God will deliver us from the furnace.
Time, right. From your hand.
Right. He'll
Right.
deliver us from your hand. And then verse 18 says, but even if he does not, we want you to know. Mm-hmm. So interesting. So I was actually watching a sermon on this story, and the preacher skipped that verse. He talked after 17, and then he talked for a while. Then he picked up at 19. Well, it says, but even if he does not.
Even if he does not.
Is that what your version? What does your version say?
He said, even if he does not, we want you to know, O king, that we will not serve your gods or worship the image of gold you have set up.
Wait a minute. But even if he does not. Okay, so what version is... Oh, that's the NIV?
Yeah.
Does somebody have a different version?
NLT.
What does that say?
But even he doesn't, we want to make it clear to you, your majesty, we will never serve your gods or worship the gold statue you have set up.
But even if he doesn't, what version you have?
NIV, and it says that even if he does not.
But even if he does not.
What does yours say?
Mine says, but even if he does not, the NASB. So wait a minute. So were they doubting?
No.
Did they not have faith?
They're trusting him, and we have to be not prepared, but it's not our will, it's God's will.
Right.
So we don't test them. We know he's mighty, we know he's powerful, we know there is nothing impossible for him, but his will be done, not ours.
Right.
So it's not that he will for sure rescue us. Even if he does not, we're still with him anyway.
Right.
We can be thrown into the fire. That's
We know it's his
we know
will.
where he's with us no matter what.
Right.
With or without the
Because
fire.
he knows the plans he has for
Right.
you, and it's not to hurt
That's
you.
total trust. That's
Right.
where I want my faith to be, the total trust.
So that's right. So but even if he does not, doesn't mean they didn't have fireproof faith. The but even if he does not defines fireproof faith.
Defines it exactly.
So they know that God can do anything. God can save them, but that doesn't mean that God will save them.
Right.
It doesn't mean that God has to save them.
But what God gives you is peace, that I can go now, and it's okay with my soul. I can go tomorrow or whenever,
Right.
Before I didn't believe, it's like I was scared. I don't want to die, right? But we gotta trust Him with for a better life.
Right. Yeah. So God has a free will. So He's not forced to do what we want just because we have faith. So our faith doesn't override God's free will. So we can't manipulate God with our faith. So the three Hebrew boys, they're not worried about the outcome because they know God's in control.
They trust Him.
So fireproof faith is knowing God can do what I want, but not presuming that He will do what I want or what I desire or what I expect or what I
He knows the heart.
assume.
He knows the hearts and your thoughts.
Right.
You cannot fool him.
Yeah. So fireproof faith doesn't mean that nothing unpleasant will never happen to you. So if God says he'll do something, then he has to do it. If he said he'll do it. But God's not obligated to fulfill our desires.
Right.
So just because we want it and we have faith in it doesn't mean he's obligated to do it. So he's not required to fulfill our desires of our heart. So I've heard it said that God gave you every good desire in your heart. But that depends on what you define as good. It's like, is it good just because it's not sin? Is it good because you desire it? It's good because society values it or the culture values it? So the Bible says if you delight yourself in the Lord, he will give you the desires of your heart. But if you're not delighting in the Lord, then he's not putting those desires in your heart. So if you delight yourself in him, it's not that the desires you have in your heart, he's going to fulfill them. If you delight yourself in the Lord, he's going to put desires in your heart. So if your desires aren't the result of delighting in the Lord, then they're not from God. So you could have desires that didn't come from God. You could have desires in your heart that came just because, society says this is what everybody should have. Society says this is good. So you desire it as well. That doesn't mean it's from God. Just because it's in your heart, everything you desire, you think is good. Otherwise, you wouldn't desire it. But it doesn't mean it's from God. So we all crave to have some type of genie that'll just grant every wish. And so I'm going to go back again to what I call the Santa Claus doctrines. The Santa Claus doctrines that say, hey, God, here's my list. I want you to fulfill this. So the Santa Claus doctrines, like the Word of Faith doctrine, it says, name it and claim it. It says you can have what you say through the positive confessions. It says prosperity, health, and wealth come from the power of the spoken word. It says poverty and sickness are all from the devil. It says if you speak it in faith, God is obligated to give it to you. So that's what you hear from the Benny Hinn's, the Creflo Dollars, the Miles Monroe, the Kenneth Hagins, the Kenneth Copelands, the Joyce Meyers, and the Joel Osteens, all Word of Faith. And also the New Apostolic Reformation have a concept of sozo. It says Jesus died for our salvation. So when it says, by your faith you are saved, that word is sozo. And it says you've been healed, that word was sozo. Deliverance is sozo. So they say, Jesus already died for those. So it's not something you have to do. They're already there. You just need your faith to activate it, which is fine, and I actually taught on that. But then they also say it's the same with wealth, that Jesus already died for our wealth. And I remember seeing stories of Jesus and the disciples healing people and casting out demons, but I didn't see any stories of Jesus making people rich.
Correct.
I couldn't find it in my version. So were the apostles rich?
They left everything.
No.
And Jesus
Follow
told them,
Jesus.
don't take anything. Just share the gospel. Don't take any house. Don't go in the house. Don't take no money.
Right.
Yeah.
Except for Judas.
Right.
He can't
Every
read.
Judas. That's the only one that took it.
So the disciples. So Judas was the only disciple rich. So according to these doctrines, if you have faith, God will make you rich. So apparently Judas was the only disciple to have faith. According to if you listen to the Santa Claus doctrines. So the other disciples, they lived meagerly.
Yeah. Right.
Jesus wasn't rich. So in the way, the original church, they weren't rich. When the church started. So some people actually went from being rich to being poor, because people that had houses, they sold their houses and shared it among everybody, and they lived in common. So people who had more possessions before they became Christians. So we can't believe that. So maybe they weren't taught sozo, but we can't believe that you're supposed to be rich because you have faith.
Well, Michael, there's an argument that Jesus was a successful carpenter. Is that so? Because if he had a business.
He had a business before he started his ministry.
Okay, right, okay. before he started his ministry, but people argue, well, he was successful, and some parts they say that, you know, he said to give all his wealth to him and everything like that.
Well, but then also, yeah, he told the guys, the rich man said, "What can I do to inherit the kingdom of God?"
Yeah, yeah.
And his answer was, "Sell all your possessions and give it to the poor." So in order to get into the kingdom, you had to become less rich than you were. Like that was the only thing that Jesus told him to do.
Mhm.
And so Jesus would have probably given even if he had a successful business before, would he have been keeping it in the bank or in his mattress, or would he have given it to the poor like he told everybody else?
He would give them to the poor.
So he wasn't rich.
Yeah, he wasn't.
During his ministry.
During his ministry, no.
So,
But a lot of people argue, they use that doctrine to argue that, oh, Jesus was rich, well, we can be. You know, this is the argument that a lot of those prosperity people
but nowhere
teach,
says
so.
he had a successful carpenter business.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. But a lot of people argue that thing about Jesus being that successful.
I never heard that. Well, what about the disciples though? Because they had faith. They had faith to heal.
Yeah.
They had faith to cast out demons.
Right.
So they would have had the faith to become rich. If it takes faith to get rich,
Right.
they would have had enough faith to do that as well.
Right. Right.
But
You know, Jesus did say, "Don't even take money," as you know.
They did.
So, yeah.
Well, when it comes to money, there is a proverb also regarding to that. I was just reading the proverb not too long ago, and it says not to set your heart in money. It's not good.
right.
It's not good.
Yeah. So we had to question some of the aspects of these Santa Claus doctrines. And so if you think about it, you know, that all it takes is faith. So Paul, he had a thorn in his side, what he called it, that he knew God could remove, but God didn't. But yet Paul had faith.
Yeah.
Paul, you know, when we say we have more faith than Paul, you know, Paul couldn't do it. Will we have more faith than the apostles? They couldn't. They weren't rich. Do we have more faith than them to become rich? So if you think about it, then, so if you look at healing, you know, in fact, if all you need is if faith, you know, if you have enough faith, you can heal anybody. That's what some of the doctrines teach. But have you ever prayed for somebody and they didn't get healed?
Yeah.
So then there's only two options. Either you didn't have enough faith, or faith doesn't always heal. And so that's the problem with the Santa Claus doctrines. Is if they tell you, hey, anytime if you have enough faith, then the person will be healed. But most of the time when people pray for people, they don't get healed. Then that leaves you thinking, well, hey, there's something wrong with me, or there's something wrong with God. So it causes you to either lose faith in yourself or you lose faith in God. And so that's the problem in that doctrine itself, is that the concept that you're saying, if enough faith always heals, but we know that faith doesn't always heal. One of the main leaders in one of these doctrines, who pretty much implies that, hey, everybody we pray for gets healed, but yet his son is 85 to 95% deaf. But he's going around healing deaf people and stuff, and he said, yeah, everybody we pray for gets healed. But it's like, well, your son is deaf.
Yeah.
So,
So then that can't be real.
right.
Right. Somebody is, you know, it's like false prophets. Well, in the last days, false prophets and teachers will come out, and even the most elect will follow them.
Yeah.
So this person probably went to most elect churches, and everything else will follow them. So
Yeah.
be mindful of that.
Well, yeah, the elect will follow, because it's not, in the days we don't have, it's not somebody coming out and saying, hey, Satan is great, following everybody say, hey, it's false prophet. Like, no, they're saying, hey, Jesus is the Son of God, Jesus is great. I mean, they're gonna, the people follow because they're saying what you expect to say with a little twist. A little twist that'll eventually eat into your faith. It's like, okay, well, wait, so something wrong with God, you know, there's an underlying problem with it that eventually you start to question your faith. And so Fireproof Faith doesn't assume that God will do whatever you want him to do. So there is power in the spoken word and positive thinking. So that is true, in that, you know, spoken word and positive thinking, there's power in it. But our faith isn't in magic. Our faith shouldn't be in the belief that we can get whatever we want by speaking some magic spells.
Yeah.
So the Santa Claus doctrine is enticing because it puts you in control. So before, it's like you just have faith and you have to just wait on God and you don't know what will happen. But the Santa Claus doctrine puts you in control. I can control it with my faith. So I can be in control of it. It gives you a practical way to get what you want. Because everybody wants to be, say, oh, I'm not wealthy. Oh, I'm sick. Oh, it's like, I want to be able to control it. So it gives you a way that you can control it. It lets you be in control of it. But the problem is God should be in control, not us. So the Santa Claus doctrine makes you self-centered and selfish. It's you're thinking of yourself as the center of the doctrine. And it shouldn't be what you want, it should be what God wants. So it's worship of yourself. So fireproof faith is when you say, Lord, if you don't do anything else to me, that's enough. So it's the but even if. It's like I'm not saying 100% you're going to do this, you're going to do that because I want it. It's a but even if.
That's having the fireproof faith. No matter what, I'm going to be okay with whatever you do or don't do.
Right. Okay, you have Daniel 3,
Yeah.
19 to 30.
Yeah. So, NLT version.
Oh, okay.
Nebuchadnezzar was so furious with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego that his face became distorted with rage. He commanded that the furnace be heated 7 times harder than usual. Then he ordered some of the strongest men of his army to bind Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and throw them into the blazing furnace. So they tied them up and threw them into the furnace, fully dressed in their pants, turban, robes, and other garments. And because the king in his anger had demanded such a hot fire in the furnace, the flames killed the soldiers as they threw 3 men in. So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, securely tied, fell into roaring flames. But suddenly Nebuchadnezzar jumped in amazement and exclaimed to his advisors, "Didn't we tie up 3 men and throw them into the furnace?" "Yes, your majesty, we certainly did," they replied. "Look," Nebuchadnezzar shouted, "I see 4 men underbound walking around the fire unharmed, and the 4th looks like a god." Then Nebuchadnezzar came close as he could to the door of the flaming furnace and shouted, "Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come out, come here." So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego stepped out of the fire. Then the high officers, officials, governors, and advisors crowded around them and saw that the fire had not touched them. Not a hair on their heads was singed. Okay, thank you. And their clothing was not scorched. It didn't even smell of smoke. Then Nebuchadnezzar said, "Praise to the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. He sent his angel to rescue his servants who trusted in him. They defied the king's command and were willing to die rather than serve or worship any god except their own God. Therefore, I make this decree. If any people, whether their race or nation or language, speak a word against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they will be torn limb from limb, and their houses will be turned into heaps of rubble. There is no other God can rescue like this." Then the king promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego to even higher positions in the province of Babylon.
All right, so God didn't deliver them from the fire.
Right.
He didn't prevent them from going into the fire. He made them fireproof.
Yep.
So they had fireproof faith. So God made them fireproof. So they went through the fire, but they didn't get hurt. So that's when God makes you fireproof.
But just like he told the king Nebuchadnezzar, we're not gonna worship your image of gold.
Right.
And he said, well, then we're throwing in the fire. He said, well, then take us to the fire.
Right.
Basically, that's what they said. We're not going to worship your
Right.
image.
And they said, we know God will deliver us.
Our God will deliver us. Straight up, God did deliver them.
Right. And they said, but if he doesn't, we're still not going to worship
Right.
him.
We're still willing to die for our God.
Right. So what do we learn from this? That they were willing to die for God, to
They won't
follow
let
God.
at any cost, even at the cost of burning to death.
Right. So they weren't 100% sure that God was going to save them, even though they had faith.
Because they said even if he doesn't.
Right. But their faith wasn't dependent on God delivering them. Their faith wasn't dependent on God giving them what they wanted. So that it wasn't that, oh, we got faith, so God give us what we want, and that their whole mindset was on God giving them what they want. Their faith was in, I'm going to serve God. That was the primary agenda.
That's what their focus was. I'm going to serve
God. Right, the focus,
God.
I'm going to serve God. Their focus wasn't, God is going to get me out of this situation. So it wasn't based on getting what they wanted. So it wasn't based on being saved. Their faith was in the Savior. So they believed in God even though the circumstances were against them. And so what was the result of it? So there was a story, you guys know Kareem Abdul-Jabbar?
Yeah.
He was a basketball player, the Lakers, one of the famous basketball players. And he had a large jazz collection, 3,000 rare albums.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was like a super valuable collection.
Yeah.
But then his house burnt down.
Yeah.
His house burnt down and he lost all of it.
Yeah, everything.
So he was devastated. So he was, he was a millionaire basketball player, but these were rare albums that he had collected over years and years and years.
You can't find it.
And they burnt down.
Yeah.
And so his fans heard about it, and one by one people started sending them copies of their old jazz albums.
Oh, wow.
And other jazz collectors heard about it. They started sending them copies.
Right.
Until eventually he got 3,000 rare albums again. But then they kept sending them. So then at the end of the day, even though his house had been through a fire, he ended up with more rare albums. They weren't all in LP format, but he ended up with more rare albums than he had before the fire.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it was the same with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. After they came out of the fire, they were better off than before they went
promoted.
in. They got promoted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they went through the fire, and they were better off after the fire than before the fire.
Right.
Because they were willing to go through the fire to begin with. They were
They
willing,
wanted
no matter,
to
because he
get
said even if he doesn't,
Right.
we're still going to go through the fire.
Yeah.
Because our
Yeah.
focus is, like you said, we're not focusing on whether he'll save us or not. Our focus is on God.
Right. Right. And so, and also now, were you gonna say something? Oh, now the king believed that God was powerful too. So that's the other result. Is now the king Nebuchadnezzar, he made a decree. Anyone who speaks against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, Yahweh, they'll be cut into pieces.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, first he didn't acknowledge their God. Now he said, if you don't bow to their God, I'm going to cut you into pieces. So that's a pretty big shift.
Yes.
That's awesome.
So God
That's right.
used the three boys and all that, and then all that was for His glory,
Right,
because now the king believe in God,
right,
and then now everybody's gonna get killed if you don't bow down to this.
right. So yeah, so God used it
God.
for His glory.
Yeah.
So God got the glory.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, so we should thank God that He doesn't always give us what we want. Sometimes He gives us something better. But it's always for His glory.
You see it on Job. I was gonna say Job. You know how he went through all these things,
Yeah.
and then at the end he was better.
Right,
Yeah.
right, yeah.
Right.
And so we look at that God getting the glory so God didn't perform the miracle because they had faith. God performed the miracle because He got the glory from it. So not only the king, but now the satraps, prefects, governors, royal advisors, they gained faith in God too.
What were the satraps? What is that?
Oh, I don't know. Those are just different parts of His government that He
people.
had. Yeah.
Their mayors and
God chooses also who He brings to Him.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So the king, maybe as stubborn or unbeliever he was, maybe once he knew God, now he's all for God, just like Paul, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So now he was for God.
You know, they're straight people in whatever they are, but if they find God, then they'll be 100% like that for God too.
Right. Right. Yeah. And the way he found God was seeing Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego go through the fire. So it may be so some suffering you're going through, it may be so someone else can see it and turn towards God because of the way you react. If they see your faith in it,
That was strengthen their faith.
They may strengthen their faith or give them faith if they didn't have it all. So he's more likely to act when you have faith because he'll get the credit. He'll get the glory.
That's so hard to do.
To have faith?
Yeah. To go through something and not know the outcome and be willing to go through it anyway.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But like you said, sometimes for the glory of the Lord, for somebody else who might be watching.
Right.
Might be helping them.
Yeah.
We're just part of the equation.
Right.
And I think that's like that with everything, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right? We're just part of the equation that whether it's for somebody else's strength, faith, or something else, it might be for somebody else who needs it.
Right. So we usually look at it as, okay, how is this bettering me? And then it may not even it may be to better somebody else.
Right.
Maybe to help somebody else you go through. So you may have went something. Now you can help somebody else going through it. So you had to suffer through it. There may not be a better situation for you. It may not have been a happy outcome for you. There may not be a promotion at the end of it. It may not be a prize at the end of it. It's just worse. You're worse off. But now you can help somebody else going through the same thing.
And that's a blessing in itself to be able to help somebody in any way.
Yeah. Yeah. So it may not be for you. You may be going through it. So if your goal is to have God's will be done, God's will may be to help someone else. So God, he got the glory. So God acting. So the question is will God get the glory if he delivers you from what you're going through? Or will God get the glory if he gives you what you've been asking for? If you've been asking for something and God gives it to you, how much glory will that bring to God? So how much glory will he get if he sustains you or if he heals you? How much glory would he get if he gives you that job or that spouse or that promotion or that child or that winning lottery ticket? How much glory will that give God? So the question is or the thought is, so we're all in Babylon today.
Yes.
So we're all in Babylon, and we're all asked to compromise our faith at some times. So some of the Nebuchadnezzars, we have them all in our lives, and they ask us to bow down to things of the world. So some of us have Nebuchadnezzars on our job. They tell us we should be inclusive. They ask you how you feel about a woman's right to choose, or how can it be that, how do you feel about if two people are in love, why shouldn't they be able to marry each other? Or are you saying that if I'm not a Christian and I'm a good person, I'm going to go to hell? So they're asking you to bow down to the world. They want to or they're asking you to manipulate some of the numbers, change the numbers a little bit to be more favorable, or they want you to not mention the negative features about the product, only talk about the good parts, or maybe they ask you, why are you staying late? Everyone else is leaving early, or everyone else is clocking in this way. So they want you to bow down to the ways of the world. So what other type of scenarios can you think of where we're asked to bow down to the ways of the world?
Oh, why don't you kick it with us? Why don't you go somewhere with us sometime? Have a little drink. I was challenged with that this week about alcohol, about drinking wine and alcohol. And this guy, he's a Christian. What do you mean by you can't get you can drink, but it's okay to drink, Eric? Yeah, but it's okay to drink, but not to be drunkard. You can't be drunk.
Right.
I had to explain that to him. You can't be drunk. So he take it and not. Hey, that's on him. But Jesus, his first one was the miracle. Water to wine. That was his first miracle. But I said, you can, but you can't get drunk.
Yeah.
You can't get drunk.
Yeah.
I basically told him.
Any other example?
Last week that was tested on me at my job, because where I work every Friday, you guys go across the street and there's a pizza place. We have pizza and wings and beer. And after I drink beer, I don't feel like working. So a couple weeks before that, I went with them, and I had me two glasses of beer. I got back to the job. It was a hot day. I was like, man, I don't want to do nothing. So the rest of the day, I was just struggling to get through the day. And I'm working with cars. I'm driving cars around, and I'm thinking if I have a negative reaction because of the sun, and that beer hits me, and I crash one of those cars, I'm going to be in trouble because I was under the influence while I was working. And we're talking. Some people have some expensive cars in the parking lot. I could bang one of them up, and then I have to explain, and it's going to be a mess. I'm like, I'm not going to do that anymore. So I went the following Friday with the guys, and it was my turn to pay, so I got 2 pitchers of beer, and I brought them out, and I got an extra cup for me, and I got me ice water. And they're like, you're not going to drink? I'm like, no, I'm going to have ice water because it's just too hard for me. And now tomorrow, I'm not going to go with them at all because I don't want to be tempted. So instead of going to lunch, I enjoy my home-cooked lunch anyway. I'll make something from home. Like, I'll make me something like a nice tuna salad tomorrow. I'm thinking about making some tuna salad. I'm going to have that. Well, those guys go across the street and go enjoy themselves. That's fine, but I'm not going to do it. So I'm not going to put myself in that temptation because I have the strength not to do that. Now I still want to drink beer, but after hours, after I'm done with work, where I don't have to go anywhere, I can sit down and enjoy some. Right. Not while I'm having to work, because some people can work after they drink. Me, I have me a beer and I'm just like, I just want to relax. I want to watch TV and go to sleep. That's what I want to do. That's what I do. But
it's best not to go with them.
But like Eric was saying, sometimes people want to pressure you and they want you to change your ways.
Yeah. They want you to bow to the ways of the world.
Right. Well, we're all going to go here. Why don't you go? So I'm not like the rest of the world. I don't want to be like the rest of the world. I want to be different. I want to be me.
Right.
My own choices. Right?
Amen.
Yeah, we got to stand up for what we believe. I don't believe in abortion. I don't believe in divorce. And I tell people that. Because that's not God's will. That's another person. So people want to believe whatever they want to believe. It's hard to force them to believe what you believe. You can't. We gotta find a way to evangelize them, and then maybe they can learn right. But just having God is the prevents from doing all those things. That the world does.
Right. Well, I guess I was having a conversation with somebody about abortion the other day, and it's like, okay, well, it's like, and they say, oh, well, you think it's wrong? I said, well, okay, let me put the Bible away, forget the Bible. I said, do you think it's okay for a mother to kill her 3-year-old if she feels, she doesn't want him or can't take care of him, to kill her 3-year-old? It's like, no. I say, so you agree that that's wrong, but it's like, okay, so at some point, whenever they start to live is when it would be wrong, right? It's like, so the debate isn't a woman's right to choose. The debate is just, when are they alive? And you say, if we sent a space probe out to Mars and they say they found life, scientists say life is when a cell can multiply. If a cell can multiply, it's a living cell. It's like, so scientifically, that's a living organism.
Right.
It's like, so the question is it okay for the mother to kill a living organism? Is it, whether it's 3 years old or 20 years old
or 3 weeks
or 3 weeks old, the question is it okay does the mother have the choice? Is it a woman's choice to kill her child? And so the question is just, when do you say that begins? But then I also look at because there's some Christians that say, oh, I don't know if abortion is wrong. And if you look at it, you say, well, if the Satanists say, the Satanists, sometimes they have to do rituals where they kill people. And abortion counts for that. So it's like, well, if the Satanists think abortion is murder, how can you as a Christian
Right.
like, if the Satanists believe abortion is murder, how can you not believe that abortion is murder?
It's because doctors have made people believe that this is just this is just cells, it's not a person yet, so it's okay to kill it, you
Right.
know. But, and then people, because of their sin, they want to believe that it is okay.
Mm.
It's because they don't want to say it is wrong, because they want to continue to live in sin,
Right.
you know. Having sex out of marriage and continue to get pregnant or whatever is, and they're saying it's my body, I can use it however I want.
Mm.
It's because they want to continue in sin.
Yeah.
They know in their heart that is wrong, because that there is, even little kids, they know when something is wrong. Something that they just look at you like they did something.
Yeah.
They know it's not right.
Well, anyone who's had one knows that they don't just feel okay about it.
Yeah, it's not okay.
I mean, not that it's an unforgivable sin, not that it's, you know, the worst sin, or it's you know, it's going to prevent you from going to heaven, but you know, it's like all of them. It's like
It's like all sin.
it's, you
Yeah.
know, they're sins.
Yeah.
You have to admit that it is a sin.
It is a sin. And people want to believe that it's okay, that is their body is it's not okay.
Yeah.
It's not just the woman embryo, it's the men's also.
Yeah.
So it's not just their choice.
Right.
You-
It's like-
Maybe this guy wants this baby.
Yeah.
Most time guys want to walk away. They don't want the burden. They don't want the responsibility. But there have been cases where people do want their babies. They want to know.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. I've heard of situations like that. All right. So to the conclusion. So fireproof faith. So sometimes God rescues you from the fire, and other time He makes you fireproof. There's delivering faith and there's sustaining faith. Fireproof faith is having trust that God can deliver you from your situation. Fireproof faith is having faith that God can use any method to accomplish His will. Fireproof faith is also being okay with the fact that God may not find it necessary to change your situation. Faith isn't manipulating God to get what I want. Faith is resting in God so He can get what He wants. Is God the center of your universe, or are you? So we can't presume that God has to do what we want just because we have faith. Fireproof faith says, even if I don't get what I want, I'll still be faithful. Fireproof faith doesn't assume to know what the future holds. It says, I know who holds the future. Fireproof faith doesn't believe only in a certain outcome, like healing or riches. It believes in God regardless of the outcome. Fireproof faith doesn't assume that there aren't any if-nots. Fireproof faith accepts the if-nots because we're not God. Fireproof faith doesn't rejoice in what I want. It rejoices in what God wants. Fireproof faith doesn't pray my will be done. It prays thy will be done. Fireproof faith doesn't believe it's all about me. It believes it's all about God. Fireproof faith doesn't expect God or the universe, as Oprah tells you, will respond to whatever I want. Fireproof faith responds to what God wants. Fireproof faith is trusting God's heart when we can't see His hands. We should pray believing that God can, but not presume that He will do what we want. So everyone who is saved has to believe in Jesus, but it's the power of Jesus that saves us, not the faith. So our faith, it saves us from the flames of hell, fireproof, but faith is only the conduit, not the source of the power. Faith is our connection to the power. It's not the power itself. The value of our faith doesn't come from us, but from the one in whom our faith lies. So at the end of the day, the healing, the deliverance, or the results are not contingent on the quality of our faith, but it's contingent on the healer, the deliverer, and the resolver. It's through Christ that we get the results. In John 9, there was a man who was born blind, and he didn't ask to be healed. But Jesus healed him completely. So it wasn't because of his own faith. So Jesus healed everyone he wanted to heal, but sometimes he healed people who expressed their faith or who had faith. And he made a point of saying, by your faith, you've been healed.
Mm-hmm. Or did he ever say, don't tell anyone?
Yeah. He told some people, don't tell anyone.
Yeah. Yeah.
But other times, out of his mercy, he healed people that didn't have faith.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so the miracle is what drew them to him.
Mm-hmm.
The sign drew them to having faith in Jesus. So for many, the faith wasn't the reason for the miracle, but the miracle was the reason for their faith. The reason for each of the healings that Jesus did was so God would get the glory.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus only performed miracles that would bring God glory. At the end of the day, it's God who decides whether we're healed, whether we're delivered, whether we're prosperous, or whether we get out of our trials. Our job is to remain confident that God can deliver us, and that if we ask Him, and it is His will, that He will deliver us. But we must also at the same time be at peace if God doesn't deliver us,
Mm-hmm.
or if He doesn't give us what we desire, knowing that what the future holds is a future with God. And at the end of the day, that's all we need.
What I want to know is making you fireproof is having trust that He will deliver you, even if you don't get what you want. You can be okay.
Mm-hmm.
But are you going to be okay because you still have faith?
Well, you have faith that you're going to be okay.
Right.
So it's more of a what you see as being okay. So the being okay isn't getting what I want, that I have faith in. So you have faith that you will be okay, but
Regardless of the
you don't
outcome.
have faith that I'm going to. You don't necessarily have faith that I'm going to get this, or that God's going to do that. It's like I have faith that I'm
No
going to
matter
be
what
okay.
happens,
No matter what happens,
right.
I'm going to be okay.
Blind.
It's like I want, this car not to hit me, but I have faith that I'm going to be okay.
Even if I do get
even
hit.
if I don't. I mean, it's okay to ask God, hey, I want this. God, I want you to do that. God, they ask God, hey, He's going to, He's going to sustain us in fire. So it's okay to ask God for what you want. And you may be more likely to get it if you ask than if you hadn't asked. So, that is, true that you may be more likely to get it, but it doesn't mean you're going to necessarily get it just
Right.
because you ask. He's not obliged to give it to you just because you ask for it. It's like you may get it if you ask, but you may not. And it's not because of you. It's not because your faith isn't strong. It's not something you did wrong. And that's what kind of people are led to believe. They're led to believe, oh, well, it was my fault because, they told me that if I have faith, then this will happen and that'll happen, and it didn't happen, so it must be my fault. And, or it must be something's wrong with God because it said if you did that, I have faith and it didn't happen. So God must not be fair and just.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like just the concept that if you have faith, God has to do it, just kind of screws up your whole
Faith belief system.
your whole belief system and your whole outlook on the world, on life.
Mm-hmm.
Because now you're secretly doubting God and secretly
Right.
doubting your faith because it didn't
Go
happen.
your way,
It's like
right.
the preacher said this is going to happen, it didn't happen, so what now you have to go around and resolve that. And and every time you go back to reinforce it, no, if you have faith then He was going to do it, and you're like, well, He didn't do it for me. well, maybe I didn't have faith. I didn't have enough faith. If I just had a little more faith, then God would have done it.
Fireproof faith is win, lose, or draw. You're gonna be okay.
Exactly.
That's what we want. That's what we want, right? That's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. We want fireproof faith that says, I trust God no matter what happens. I trust that God is in control, and if this isn't what it meant to be, then it's not even necessarily that hey, God wanted this to happen.
Right.
It's just that He didn't choose to stop it.
Right.
So it wasn't
And it
necessarily
might not
something
be
He
for
wanted.
us. It might be that He's letting that happen for somebody else.
Right.
For somebody else's benefit.
Yeah, could be for somebody else's benefit.
Who may need it more than you.
Right.
Right.